Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Inspire Career Spotlight on Careers, the video podcast series where I bring you professionals from all over the career management space to keep you up to date and help you better manage your careers. And today, my guest is Ellen Whitlock Baker. Hi, Ellen.
Hey, Kathy. So happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. This is great. We got a really exciting show today, something completely different, but let me introduce Ellen first, and then we will get into it. So Ellen Whitlock Baker is an executive coach, speaker, podcast host, and the founder and CEO of EWB Coaching. After 20 years in the workforce and a challenging experience with burnout, Ellen is passionate about making systemic changes in our workplaces to make them more human-centric, efficient, and effective by changing toxic norms that are not serving anyone well. A member of Forbes Coaches Council, Ellen is also the host of the Hard at Work podcast, which says the quiet part out loud about which is not working in today's workplaces and shares tools to help survive it and make necessary changes. She speaks regularly at conferences and conducts workshops about burnout and envisioning a better future of work. And listen, for all of us who have been working for any amount of time, burnout is real. And if you're wondering what this has to do with Spotlight on Careers, I'll tell you what it has to do is that the reason people come to me, an executive coach, is because they're considering changing careers. They want to explore what's out there. And oftentimes it is because of burnout. It's because of a toxic work environment. Maybe they've outgrown their workplace. That happens too. But oftentimes it is because of the dynamics happening in the workplace. So when Ellen and I got introduced and we started talking and she shared about what she does and how she coaches her clients, I thought, that is a perfect topic for us to talk about because I know that even after you get a new job, no workplace is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, Ellen, I'm going to let you talk a little bit, tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do. And then let's talk about burnout, which everybody experiences. But let's start out by talking a little bit about yourself and give us some perspective on, how you help your clients.
Sure. Thank you, Kathy. And thanks for the nice introduction. I'm so happy to be here. It's nice to be on the other side of the podcast. I feel it's very I just have to sit and talk. It's delightful. I have been full-time doing podcast hosting and speaking and workshops and coaching for about a year. I was doing some of that as a side hustle, specifically the coaching for about 3 years total. And it's really been a life-changing experience for me, and I love it. And what it has helped me do by stepping away from the workplace, which I did in January of 2025, because I was burned out, I now can kind of see it better, and I've had the time to sit and reflect on my experiences, the people I knew, the people on my team, everyone I talked to. And we really have a problem in this country with burnout, specifically in the US. We are looking at, 44% of people say that they're burned out in their job. That's half the workforce. And, we're losing almost $1 trillion a year to replacing people who are leaving workplaces because of burnout, because of toxic work environments. And we're not fixing the systems. But what we're doing is we're really concentrating on the people and saying, hey, Kathy, it's your fault you're burned out. Why don't you take some yoga or, maybe write in a journal or whatever? Not that any of that is not a good thing to do. I wrote in my journal this morning, but it's not your fault. It's the systems. And I think we're really positioned terribly to succeed in the workplace when the workplace is not taking this crisis seriously. And so my work is both with leaders to try to change the system as much as we can, or at least get it started, and also with individuals who are really struggling in the system. And, it's not going to change tomorrow. So we also have to develop tactics to, help ourselves stay within healthy boundaries when the workplace is going to push us to go beyond those every single day.
Yeah. And, I worked in corporate world for, 30 years. And you made a great statement before about you really saw more about it after you stepped away from the workplace. When you're in it, it's so hard because you've got so much going on in the workplace. And imagine that you've got 2 weeks vacation, right?
Yeah.
2 weeks vacation. You're working 40 hours a week. Then they want you to take weekend call perhaps, or, you have to work extra hours or overtime or whatever it is. And then you've got family life. You've got all kinds of things happening. Is it any wonder any work gets done, right?
Yeah.
And usually, and I worked in HR a very long time too, the way you talked about, you said replacing people, right? Or telling, is how we handle it in the workplace. But it starts, in my recollection, with telling people they have performance issues or attitude problems, right? Because that's how the symptoms come out, is that I'm either tired or I'm not at my best self, or maybe I'm edgy or I'm late or whatever it is, instead of addressing the issues that are burning it out. But it's such a cultural thing. And if I
Yep.
can just share this, I'd love your opinion on this. So I was on vacation last week.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yay. Good for you.
yay, Kathy, right? Because I burn out too. Like I work a lot,
Sure.
right? Which is great.
Entrepreneurship is the hardest, I think,
It's
too.
brutal,
Yeah.
brutal. However, let me tell you this, I was in Spain. And while that's great, but it's interesting because one of the ladies that I was hanging out with said to me, she was, I can't believe you're here for a week. How can you have a vacation for a week? You people in America, you come here for a week. She said, that's no time. It takes you a week just to relax. She goes, we all get, 6 weeks or whatever. She goes, it's no wonder. She goes, that have problems. And like, she was kind of giving me her perspective, and it was fabulous because she was right.
She's
And
right.
it's exactly what we're talking about, because you need more time off, you people. And she was
Yeah.
right about it. What do you
Yeah.
think about you? So you agree?
I totally agree. I'm going to grab this just because I'm reading Overwork right now by Bridget Schulte. I'm probably saying her name wrong, but it is a fantastic book. And what she's really doing is showing why America is specifically really bad at this. And she mentions, I was just reading in the book about how many days off mostly like European and Scandinavian countries get. And it's like 3 months for some of them. And you are expected to take those holidays. You are not supposed to work. And people don't. They have this really strong sense of, okay, you work when you work and you don't work when you don't work. And there's a lot of things that it's so complicated, Kathy, because it goes with like health insurance. And,
Yes.
we feel like we have to work and dear God, we can't lose our jobs. And, I have a husband who's a type 1 diabetic. Like if I don't have insurance, it's unaffordable. We'd go bankrupt. And so the thought of not working just was terrifying for me for years, or not working, in a place that I got benefits directly. And in these countries where healthcare is a right to everyone, and it's a different story because you don't feel so chained to your workplace. And we have this uber capitalist, model here where it's all about making money. And it's really interesting to me because a lot of the things that we are doing right now are actually probably making us less money over time. As the $1 trillion that businesses are spending in replacing people, you could absolutely become more efficient, and workplaces have become more efficient and effective by doing less, doing it better, and treating your employees really well so that they don't leave. And I think that there's a few models in the US of people that are doing this well. I'm still learning about all of them. But in other countries, we can really look at how to do it. And I love what you said, because I think of Spain and I think of siestas and I think of, we eat dinner at 10 o'clock. And like, I've been to Paris and man, I've seen business folks sit and eat a 2-hour lunch and have 2 glasses of wine and then go back to work. And it's so civilized. And yet, we're eating our sad salads at our desks in 15 minutes between meetings. It's just, you don't have to do it. We don't have to do it. And I think that is really what is important to come to is it's okay to not want to do that every day. It doesn't mean you're not ambitious. It doesn't mean that you're not, really good at your job, that you can't be an excellent contributor to a team. But what we're taught is that if you're not first in the office and last to leave, you're not, really giving it in your all. If you're not working overtime and emailing at night, you're not giving it your all. If you're not busy, wearing that badge of busyness, you're not giving it your all. And none of that is true. And so it's really about unlearning all of those expectations that we put on ourselves and that our businesses put on us. Because of societal influences and, the way that our systems work. It's about unlearning that. And that is really hard, especially when you get your self-worth from being a productive person. And so to slow down feels like, well, why would I do that? Who am I? Are they going to fire me? It's just it's a catch-22 that we can get around, but it takes some work.
It does. And the important thing that I think we're talking about here is it isn't all about the time off. It is about what's happening in the workplace while you're there. I mean, you do not have enough time off, right? We certainly don't. That's one issue that we do not have enough time to recover from the mental stress, from the physical stress. And imagine that you have a physical job too, right? Is 2 days enough to recover? I don't know. I know people that I've worked in a warehouse. I've supported a warehouse environment as an HR professional, and those people work hard. And if you only have 2 days, or maybe you're on a 4-day, 3-day off schedule, it's not enough to repair your body. So, there's so much of that. And then on top of it, you've got performance expectations, right? And your dollars are tied to that, and it's constant. But even in a corporate environment, which is probably most people that are going to be watching this, I remember being in that environment, and it was the constant demands. And sometimes you even can step back and go, is any of what I'm doing necessary?
Yeah.
But it feels like we have to constantly be pushing things onto the people that work for us, taking things that are coming down on us just because you're always supposed to be doing something. That's the expectation, whether it's productive or not, whether it's meaningful or not, but you better be working. And if I catch you talking, it's over, right?
Oh my gosh, so much of what you just said is true. And that's a huge part of the problem. And middle management, which is really where I lived for most of my career, we take the brunt because we've got these folks ahead of us who are telling us, meet the bottom line. And my background's in nonprofit and the public sector. It's the same. We're not making money, but we're solving these massive problems that are never going to be solved in our lifetime. I mean, I hope they are, but we can't end hunger by working 80 hours a week as one person. And yet we keep taking on and taking on and taking on, just like corporations do. And it's exhausting. And then we burn out and, what good are we then, when we leave the sector or just totally have a flaming burnout? And that takes a long time to heal from. I'm in the middle of it right now. When you burn out officially, and the World Health Organization has an official diagnosis of burnout, so we know it's a real thing. When you burn out, it's like coming back from grief. It's grief, it's grief. It's a lot of self-work. It's really challenging. You're exhausted. Your body's healing. I am healthier now than I've been, in years because honestly, I'm not doing that much differently other than not having that massive amount of cortisol hitting my system every day. And it's just a really, for me, a personal example of why we shouldn't be doing this to ourselves. And, I think that it's deceptively simple what we need to do in the workplace. We need to reduce expectations. The expectations that are loaded on us are too high. No one can meet them. If you think about, all of the things, if you're listening to this and you think about all of the things that you're expected to do every day at work, then go home and do. And a lot of us have this challenge, women in particular, because we're still taking on more of the second shift than men. There's no way you can meet all the things. Write them all down. You can't hit all those. And so why would you keep straining to meet these unrealistic expectations instead of just taking a look at those expectations and putting them down to a realistic level? So it's not it's like the problem has been diagnosed. We know it. We have all the evidence that burnout is terrible, and we have all the evidence that it's costly and it's inefficient. And like you said, we're spending all of this time doing busy work and not really making a change, but we're not changing. And that really, as I'm learning, has to do with our brains resist change. Change is so scary. And change to our brains is, bad because it's different than what they're used to and different than what they think is safe. And so it takes some work to make these big changes. And that's the piece that I think we're grappling with right now, both as individuals and as companies. How do we make these changes in a world that feels very scared to do so?
Yeah. And, I think people sometimes take their own, meaning do it on their own. What I'm seeing more of a trend now is people that have lost their jobs, like they've been downsized, right?
Yeah.
Reduction in force. And now they're taking a year off.
Yeah.
Where before, and I'm not saying it's happening all the time, but I'm seeing more and more of it. Whereas, of course, it's a privilege to be able to do that. And these people know it, right? They're not just taking it lightly, but they have the opportunity to do that. But they are saying, I needed a break. I've been working for 20 years. I just needed some time off, whether it's 6 months or a year. I've never really spent that kind of time with my children, or my mother's getting older. And even though she doesn't need 24-hour care, I just want to spend some time with her, or whatever. I've just never had time to be with myself or whatever the issue is.
Yeah.
But then they come back and, we're putting together their resumes. We're doing their coaching. We're looking to help find them jobs. We're talking about what their job targets are. We have to prepare their story because we know they're going to get asked, so what have you been doing for the past year?
Yeah, like it's a bad thing.
Like it's a bad thing, right? Exactly. And the implication is that you become an idiot when you're gone for a year. Like the whole world changes and you couldn't possibly catch up, right? So, but people are taking back that control and saying, I have the opportunity to do it. I'm going to do it. And I know I might pay a price for it, but it's worth it because I may never get that opportunity. I'll never get that 6 months or that year back again. And I think it's fabulous. I love when I see it, And so now it's kind of trying to tell that story about what have you been doing in that year? And sometimes it's volunteerism. Maybe it's continuing education. Maybe it's, I just needed to recenter and find my best self. And now, employer, you're lucky. You're going to get the best of me. Like
that's a good way to put it.
Too. That's a great story, as opposed to I'm running between jobs and I'm just here.
Yeah.
I'd rather hire that person too, right? But
Me
Ellen,
too. Yeah.
who is this? Who is it working for? Because we know that it's not working for people, but it's got to be working for somebody or it would not be continuing. Who's it working for?
You mean the way it's working now?
Yeah. Somebody's benefiting from this.
The rich people. Yeah. I mean, the people who own the companies are benefiting. You look at all of the like the reductions in forces that have been happening. Like Starbucks just laid a ton of people off, and I'm here in the Pacific Northwest. So when Microsoft or Amazon or Starbucks does a big layoff, we really feel it. I've learned they do that because it's actually financially advantageous for them to do that. It actually doesn't have anything to do with, oh gosh, we really don't have enough money. It's like a way to make stakeholders happy and their stock price is better. And it's nasty, And what I've also learned is that, I went to graduate school. I got a master's in public administration, which I call like the MBA for people who work in the public and nonprofit sector. We did not learn this, but in MBA programs, they teach that your labor is the first thing that should go. It is expendable. Mm-hmm. And so we have this generation of people who went to business school who think that way or have learned that way. This is how we manage a business. Let's cut the labor, instead of let's actually put resources into our labor force so that they grow, they become super strong contributors, they feel great, and, we're off and running. And so it's just this this bottom line approach is so horrible for everyone. And, it's the rich are getting richer and the middle class is going down. And, we're seeing some really, really rough things happening in this country right now. And a lot of it has to do with this late stage capitalism. We're really, if you are rich, you are in great shape right now. And if you are not, you are not. And it's really scary. And what is great to see is that for the companies, the opposite is working for. They have real results. Like I follow, I don't know if you know Tori Dunlap. She's the financial feminist. She wrote a book. She's fabulous. Lives here in the Pacific Northwest, but has like a massive podcast. And she's been talking a lot on LinkedIn lately about how she has created her company of all women to be, they bring babies to meetings if they want to. They have menstrual leave. So when you have your period, you can take time off paid, which is unbelievable, right? For those of us who have suffered through like horrible symptoms while having to still show up at work because we couldn't, didn't feel like we could take a sick day for it. She lets her folks have as unlimited time off, which can be a double-edged sword because if you're working in a company where the expectation is you work and work and work and work, then you just end up taking nothing. But when you're sort of forced to take it, then great. Her folks can work from anywhere, wherever they want. It's this beautiful thing of like, I train and trust and value my employees to take care of themselves, and I want them to do that. And we're really clear on what the work is. And if they get the work done, fabulous. If they don't get the work done, well, that's when we have a conversation. But I don't care if they do it from Spain or from their mom's garage. Like, it doesn't matter. And that's where I think we're, we just have this horrible culture of must be in the office. And it's like we're unlearning everything we learned during the pandemic. And this return to office mandate just makes me so mad because it's really harmful to people because you're sitting in an office every day, you're commuting maybe an hour each way, you're getting less work done. Like, it's proven, again, like all of the data shows that it is absolutely less efficient to make your people come into the office every day. It's less efficient to have a 40-hour work week. Everywhere that's experimented with a 30-hour or 32-hour has shown massive productivity increases, et cetera. But we just can't get around that's how it's supposed to be, And so I hope that we can start making a difference. I'm worried because of the bottom line being so important, and the people who can make decisions are the people who get the most out of that bottom line. It's going to take people who are willing to give up some of that in order to create a better system for everyone rather than just for themselves. And, I don't know if those people are out there. I hope so.
Well, let's talk about their limit. So let's say they are. Let's say they are listening, or let's say they have already thought about it. They don't need us to tell them because they're already thinking about it. Like, what kind of things would you recommend that are best practice to start with? So what kind of things would you like to see employers do? I mean, maybe it is unrealistic for everybody to say, work wherever you want, bring your dogs to work, do your thing. But
my dog's here.
I love it, right? But like, what kind of things? Where can employers start when they want to start moving the dial, or at least to just give that olive branch to say, yeah, I see, and I'm trying. So we're in this together. We're trying, and let's take some baby steps to see what we can do. What do you recommend?
Here's what you don't do. Give everybody a day off, just one. That's not going to do anything. And that's definitely like, I've been rewarded with days off as opposed to pay increases if that couldn't happen in a year, or, as a like, oh, congrats, you worked really hard, take a day off. I don't need another day off. I have vacation time that I can't even use because my work is so much. So don't do that. It's not. I have a client and, he's doing 3 jobs, 3 really high level jobs at once. It's super stressful. And his boss said to him, I really want to make sure you're doing okay. Take a Friday off one of these days. And it's like, love the intention. The intention is good. And that's not going to do anything for him. And he'll probably spend half the day on email anyway.
But you know what I hear in there too? I hear, I've taken the responsibility off myself to allow you to do that.
Exactly.
And I'm going to place it on you, ma'am. Right? To make the judgment call because, gee, when the phone is ringing, oh, you can't walk away. And I know you're going to know that. So I'm going to tell you that.
It's just how it is. It's just how it is. And you're an executive and you make a lot of money, so you should be doing more.
Right.
Like there's that too. And it's
not real.
As an executive, you're getting paid more because you have experience and strategy and a way of thinking and a great way of managing, hopefully, that can, really point everybody where they need to go to do best for the company. It's not because you work more hours. It's just like we're so messed up about that. So anyway, don't give everybody a day off as your one thing to do. I think there's a couple of things, and I've been really lucky in the podcast to have interviewed a ton of people who are much smarter than I am about all of this. And the major takeaways I'm seeing are, number one is you have to be okay with pausing or slowing down, because so many of us are working so hard that we can't even think about how to restructure or what to do next. And so we put these Band-Aids on, like everybody gets Friday off, or, here's a yoga class at lunch or whatever. Those are not going to fix the problem. The problem is in the system. So we have to create a new system that works better. And so the first thing is you have to stop doing some things in order to really spend time on that. And that can be really, really hard for people. But again, it's going to pay off in the long term. It's like, we're just like not future focused enough. We're sitting here like, well, what's next quarter going to be like? No, what's like 3 years from now going to be like? Look at how awesome it could be if we actually stop and make it happen in a good way. Because I guarantee you will cut so many hours of useless crap from your lives when you stop and say, oh my God, we were having 5 executives in an hour-long meeting every single week to talk about nothing. Like, we don't need that anymore, right? So just so number one is like, be okay with pausing. You got to be okay with pausing. Number two, involve the workforce. You have to involve everybody. You ask people, what do you need? What do you want? What's not working? What's the challenge? And you have them help you co-create these norms of like how you work together in the office, and also what their roles are and how they are most efficient, and what do they need in order to succeed in your company? Do they need more training? Do they need, more schooling? Do they need just more time to be creative? Whatever it is, you're going to come up with whatever it is, but you need to involve that company. And that doesn't mean you do one employee pulse survey and you're done. Like, that's kind of what you were saying earlier. You can't check that box and be done. It's a lifelong process. And it's hard. It's going to be hard, and they're going to say things you don't like because you're used to doing it a certain way, or they're going to say things that you're like, we could never do that. But you have to like keep this open mind in order to make these big changes, And then the third thing I see is you have to have clarity in your roles. And this is what I know has been missing from almost everywhere I've worked in. And, no offense to public and nonprofit sector places, but I hear it's common in, the private sector too. We're trying to do too much. So of course our roles are really sort of vaguely defined, and like my role was engage alumni. Like there's 600,000 alumni. What does that exactly mean? And so we can get a lot clearer in our job descriptions, which is exactly what Gen Z needs, by the way. And they're smart to want it, but they want that clarity. They're like, no, really, what am I supposed to do? And we might be looking at them as like, figure it out. I had to, that's kind of the attitude that we have. No, they're actually right. Like, help them. What is their role?
Ellen, I think people are jealous of Gen Z because
I think so too.
Gen Z and now the Gen Alpha, they want what they want and they're not afraid to ask for it. And I think we're a little bit resentful that they got to pay their dues. And maybe there's an element of that, but the reality is they're asking for what we should have asked for. And I think people resent it. And unless we can benefit from it, people don't like it. And
but
they are going to be the ones that are going to change it for everybody.
And if we don't start catering to what they need and want, and catering's not the right word, listening to the smart things that they have to say, and changing the workplace, we are going to lose all of our workers. You're seeing it. They're turning over faster than ever, especially in those younger millennial Gen Z, world. And we're sort of like, there's so many of us who are like, just like holding on to what we know because it's what we know. It's how we know how to do it. It makes us feel comfortable. We're scared. We can't stop and think about something else because we've got 17 things due, so it's really this like horrible cycle. And I'm a sort of millennial Gen X like hybrid. I know how that feels. It's really hard, but if you can stop and question yourself a few times when you have one of those reactions like, I can't believe they're asking for a promotion already. Like, they've been doing their job for a year. Why would they think they should have a promotion? Ask yourself why you think that. And it's really hard to actually answer that. When you really get down to it, you sort of always get to, well, because that's how it is, which isn't a good answer. Oh, anyway,
because it's always the way it's always been. That's always the answer, right?
Yeah. But again, we're going too fast to stop and slow down and change. And we're not having a lot of push from the top to change because the change, will affect the bottom line in the short term. And so it's this like very awful cycle that feels really bad. But if we don't do something about it, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not good because every year the burnout cases are rising and every year more people quit. And every year the like average lifespan of I work a lot with fundraisers and that's kind of my background. And the average term for a fundraiser to keep a job right now is 15 months. And you think of like how much you go through to hire and train and whatever, and then they leave because your workplace is toxic. So there's work we have to do. So that's really like where I would start with being willing to pause, listening to your employees, and then getting super clear on roles. And with that comes super clear metrics, not punitive, clear, so that you know how you are doing as an employee and you know exactly what you're going for. And you're reviewing those metrics quarterly to say, hey, I was supposed to do these things. I did 3 of them, not 4 of them. Here's why. Let's talk about it, blah, blah, blah. So that when you get to your annual review, you're not surprised, which has happened to me more than once and is an awful thing. Don't surprise people in their reviews, people. So it's really just that. It's those 3 things are what I keep hearing over and over again, and what I've become to believe that those are the big things we need to do to change.
So, Ellen, what do you tell your clients then when they're in a workplace that is not even interested in change and they're desperate to help themselves? So let's talk about that, the recommendations for people, survival skills, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, I like that, survival skills, because what I want to remind everybody and what I remind my clients is that, again, it's not your fault that you are where you are. And the workplace is going to make you feel like it is. It's going to make you feel like you're not as invested as you used to be. And so you need to get more invested, or you're behind. So you need to stay up late and do emails at night. It's not your fault. It's not your fault if you burn out and have to take FMLA. You are just being expected to do too much. So that's one thing. And it's been really, I can't think of the right word, but like it feels really wonderful when I can help a client realize that, because we put so much blame on ourselves. And again, all of the fixes for burnout are aimed at you as an individual fixing yourself. And when you can kind of say, oh, this is way bigger than that, it's a relief. So there's a couple of things I tell my clients or we work on. One of them is boundaries. I know everyone says boundaries. It is the number one way to protect yourself. I have a boundaries toolkit for free on my website. I can make sure Kathy has the links so that you guys can. Yeah, and it's got some scripts in there and whatever. I'm not a boundary fan. I'm a people-pleasing perfectionist. I will say yes to everything. But when you can get super, super clear on your boundaries and you set them and you keep them, then you protect yourself. And that's things like, I will not check email after 5. Sorry, not sorry. You're just not going to hear from me. Like, you have, if you have a fancy important job that maybe there's something very important that has to be told to you at the wee hours of the morning, people have your cell number, like it's not necessary. We also spend a lot of time thinking our jobs are very fancy and important when they don't matter in that way at all. I do a lot of work with nurses in hospitals. that matters. They can't just walk away from what they're in the middle of doing.
Ellen, I have to tell you, my first career, I was a registered nurse.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then I did that for 15 years. And then when I went into HR and people would come into my office like their hair was on fire and they'd be like, this is an emergency. I need this now. And I'm like, you don't know the definition of emergency.
You don't.
And I would have a completely different perspective on emergency and on priority. And I really had to get my mind in a different place because people thought things were absolutely different than my level of emergency.
Oh my gosh.
Well, nobody. Then let's just kind of relax. It's a great point. It's all perspective. So thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I love that. I'm glad to hear that. And I honestly get nervous when I go and work with nurses because I'm like, y'all do really hard work. Like I like some of my tips won't work for you because you can't just leave the room if it's stressful, right? But there's different ways to look at burnout in the healthcare profession, or first responders. It's different, but most of us are not doing work that is critically emergent. And I can't tell you how many times I emailed in the middle of the night. I had when I was working my sort of first senior director job, I had an appendectomy. Like I was sick and I didn't know what was happening. And I went to work anyway because we were interviewing people that day and I had to be there. And eventually I was like, I have to go home because I was just so sick. I didn't know what was wrong. I, finally went to the ER because I called a nurse and they were like, is your pain in this quadrant? And I was like, yes. And they were like, you should come in. I was lying on the hospital bed, waiting for my surgery to take my appendix out on morphine, emailing everybody at work to be like, okay, I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks. Here's what, blah, 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 And it was like, I think about that now, and it was like emailing them so that the marketing brochure about the lecture series went out in the way it was supposed to, or, it was none of it was important. And yet I felt like I had to do all of that. And some of that is ego and self-importance, and some of that isn't. So it's not as important as you think it is all of the time. So one is boundaries, and they're hard, but they're important. And if you can teach your team and as a whole team create boundaries, like we don't take meetings as this team on Fridays at all, which I did with my last team. It's great because it opens up, time, and then there's power in numbers. The second thing I would say is really help yourself understand that it's okay to change. And so this is where we as individuals get really stuck on, I can't do this differently because this is how I know how to do it. But really getting a deep understanding of like, what's going on in your brain that is making you not want to change. I teach a class called Start Anyway that's really kind of helping people through like, what is that teeny tiny first step that you can take? Because that's often the thing that you need to do to change a habit or start something new or whatever. I talk about Britt Frank all the time. She's amazing. Her book, The Science of Stuck, has been a game changer for me. And she's a neuropsychotherapist. So she understands, she's telling you what's happening in your brain when change is coming your way or resistance is happening for you. It's really helpful once you understand that. So I think that's 2. And then 3, I really like a go plan. I don't know if you've ever done that with a client, but it's this sort of secret plan of if you want to quit, what will it look like? And there's something about having it that makes you feel so much better. Because even if you're not going to go, you know what the steps would be to get there. And so you know that there's a way to get out. And there's this peace of mind that really comes with that I have found to be really helpful. And that I certainly had that when I left my job. It was like 6 months before I gave my notice that I knew I was leaving. But I didn't quite know how yet, but I knew I was leaving. And then all of a sudden, everything became less stressful because I was like, I'm not going to be here to worry about that anymore.
I tell my clients this all the time, and it may sound like a shameless plug, but this is the truth. You should always have your resume updated. Your LinkedIn should always be updated. You're on LinkedIn when you're looking for a job, and then you forget about it. You've got to be engaging on LinkedIn and building your network and still having coffee with people and talking to people because you got to be keeping that network alive so that the day your job goes away, because maybe one day you are texting from Matt Gurney in the hospital ready to go in surgery, and then you go back to work on Monday, oh, we're downsizing, your job is gone. All of a sudden, it's not important anymore, right? And so now, or if you feel like you can't leave your job because, oh God, I don't even have my resume, I got nothing, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, if you're already prepared, if you know that you don't have to scramble for that, there's power in knowing that you're prepared and that you can always, and you've already got a network and you've already have stuff. This is where I always want people to be. So after you get your next job, you get that resume updated within 3 months, but you don't just close up LinkedIn. I had a client, he got a job and he's closed down his LinkedIn because he was tired of recruiters contacting him.
Oh, no.
I don't even know. I can't even. I don't know. So, but that's not the to-do, right? So, but when you do that, and of course, then there should be a financial plan, but you do with these things, but that's why you've got an emergency fund too, right? But when you have this professional plan in place, professional hygiene is what I call it, getting your stuff done once a year, just reminding yourself that you've got alternatives. I used to have a boss who told us, interview. Everybody should be interviewing 4 times a year. He said, you should know what's happening out there, know what's happening in the market. He told me this 25 years ago.
Wow.
Know what's happening in the marketplace and make sure your interview skills are good. He said, I do it. You should do it. And of course, we were young and stupid and took offense like, ooh, he's trying to get rid of us. We didn't know any better, right? Now looking back on it, I'm like, duh, he was trying to help us, right? And now it makes perfect sense, right, to be able to do that. But so when you think about that, and even if you don't want that job, just interview and just keep those skills. And then you're not afraid anymore. So when they start calling you into the office at 2:00 on a Friday, you're never going to love it. But you're like, you know what? I'm not afraid because I got this. I'm cool. I got this under control.
I have a plan. Yeah. And it can feel like there is no time for that when you are in the overwhelm state, when you're in the burnout state, when you are already like, I can't even just do my work and feed my kids every day. Like, I don't know how am I supposed to, also be meeting with people and looking at LinkedIn and, all of that. And that's where that sort of recognition of what your body's resisting, what's your mind resisting? Because you can't keep adding. You have to subtract. There's too many expectations on you. You're not going to meet them all. So what do you subtract in order to spend an hour on your LinkedIn every week or go to coffee once or twice a week with somebody who's doing a job that you find interesting or whatever it is to keep that hygiene up? What do you subtract? And often you can subtract some of the work that you're doing that doesn't make any sense or isn't helping anybody, or it's a meeting that nothing ever comes out of. Once you start seeing that, you can subtract because if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably 110%er, right? Like a lot of us are. Like, I only know how to give 110%. And I had a coach who said, Ellen, what would it look like if you just gave 80? And I was like, I don't know, I'd get fired. And she was like, no, you wouldn't, why don't you try? And when I learned how to do that, I was like, oh my God, I have more time. I was still doing my job really well because my 80 is pretty good, but I had time to do the things you're talking about. And so it's such a good point, Kathy, to you got to prioritize yourself and taking care of your LinkedIn and having your resume up to date and doing those coffees. That's taking care of you. That's making sure you have your own back for when you do get laid off or fired or you just can't take it anymore. Because with burnout, you can't work through it. Like once you hit a place of burnout, like the bad burnout, and I was there, you can't. Your body says no. And either you get physically ill or you are just mentally not there or you're crying every day or whatever it is, your body's going to tell you, you have to stop. And so if you have a plan, that feels a lot easier than if you are just so deep in despair that you feel like you can't do anything else. So I totally agree with you and recommend that too. I think that's a great, keep yourself up to date.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we can talk about it all the time because everybody should, it's about self-care. That's part of self-care. Really,
it is.
And we don't think about it that way, but it is. And there's a saying, I won't get it right, but something about taking care of your health now, or you're going to take care of your illness later, or something like that. But this is the same thing, right?
Yep.
Because this does, and we don't have time here today because we're really out of time now, but we don't have time to talk about what physically happens to you during stress. But, please, you should be doing more research on that. What physically happens to your body. Ellen mentioned the shots of cortisol that, comes through your body. That's where you get your blood pressure, high blood pressure. That's where you get the belly from. Like this is the stuff, right? And it's constantly kicking out, right, from your adrenal glands. Like things are happening out there that to your body that you don't even know, right? And once you understand that, it kind of makes more sense. And then you really see how it truly impacts, down the line. But Ellen, we are running out of time here. So my question to you then is, for people that are feeling like they are on the edge of that, and they're trying to kind of walk that line, and maybe they're too far into it at this point to change. Maybe they're 2 years from retirement. I don't know, whatever the situation is. Maybe they can't make the change or whatever. And, they're trying to think of ways to kind of to hold on to, that self-care mechanism. Is there like something that they can do to, I don't know, I want to say an affirmation, but some way that they can talk to themselves, or some other way that they can kind of coach themselves through the day so that they keep themselves going and kind of constantly remind themselves about what's important? Maybe we could end on that, because I think that's important. I want to give people some additional, an additional tool to hang on to as they leave the conversation.
That's a long answer though, Kathy. Well, it can be short.
That's part two.
Yeah, right. One thing is know your values. I didn't know what my values were until I was in my 40s. Like I hadn't really ever stopped to think about what do I care about, as opposed to what does everybody else want me to care about. And so once you know that can be really helpful. And you can do that work with a coach. I know you do it. I do it. You can do it online for free. Brene Brown's Dare to Lead book has a whole values exercise on it. It's all online. That's the one I use with my clients. It doesn't have to cost you money, but if you can kind of sit with yourself and really get to like, what are the two most important things to me? It gives you this reframing. And when you say affirmation, it just gives you that sort of like filter to filter everything through. And it helps you figure out what really is important and what isn't. And the other thing I would say is put a Post-it note on your monitor that says subtract, don't add. Because we all add, and I tell the story all the time, but one of my clients, like she was so stressed out, really high level job, that she'd fainted at work. And I was talking to her a week or two later, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, how can you, like, what are you going to do? You obviously need to put some things away because this is not good. And she was like, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. every morning and I'm going to go to the gym every day because working out makes me feel better. And I was like, that's not going to make you feel better right now. Like, but we're conditioned to add. And again, we're conditioned that anything that benefits us, like that workout or that therapy appointment or that walk in the park, that's taking time away from our company. And so it's kind of like, ooh, should I do it or not? You're no good to anyone if you're burned out. Trust me, I've been there. So subtract, don't add. Get rid of something. Take something off your plate. And if that sounds so hard, do a really tiny itty bitty step. Try for 1 week, maybe, like not doing one thing once and just see how that feels. And then you can kind of slowly add on to it. Because if you say, oh, I'm now no longer going to do, I'm no longer checking email after work ever, it's too much for your brain. That's too big of a change. It's too scary. So what's the little way that you can start easing yourself into it, and then it will happen for you?
All right. I love it. I love the reminders because I write notes all day long. Don't a lot of us. So that's a perfect thing to do. I love it.
I have a bunch of sticky notes on my monitor.
Love it. Okay, perfect. All right. So thank you, Ellen Whitlock Baker. Thank you so much for joining us today. Listen, we're going to have the show notes here. We're going to have ways to contact Ellen if you want to talk to her more about this. Her social, follow her on social. You have everything here. But this is a great topic, and I'm sorry we haven't covered it before, but I'm glad we covered it with you. Thank you, Ellen.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Listen, folks, make sure that you subscribe to our channel here before you take off for today. And we have lots of great episodes, so go take a look. And before we meet again, live inspired.